Welcome to the Microsoft Security Insights Podcast with your hosts, Franklin Grimberg and Edward Walton, where we discuss Microsoft 365 security and Azure security news and products. Recorded April 21st, 2021 at 6:05 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Good evening, Franklin. Good evening, Rod. Good evening, Mr. Ande. How are you guys doing today?
Good. I'm checking out your arm there. You got the nicotine patch off.
Yeah, man, the burn is healing up. Literally like second-degree burns, but it's all right now. So I'm letting it breathe of sorts, right?
There you go.
Yeah, it'll do what it do, right? If not, I'll order me a new arm on Amazon or something if they have my size.
You seemed kind of distracted earlier when you first got on. It's not a happy day for you for some reason. Is it just because Rod's here or what?
No, not that. Part of it. No, it was I've been actually doing real work, and so interesting request from a customer, and I'm going to ask it on the podcast. But before we got started, how are you doing, Frank? You good? You good?
Right. Doing good. I've been doing my Pen 300 work, so training, which has been great, doing a lot of injection work. So it's interesting doing this work because now I know when I do like volatility memory analysis what they're looking for and the reason why. So that's kind of cool. Today I went to some other vendor training, which was fun, and that was when we started talking about the topic of can you replace your SIM with an XDR. So you had something to follow up about that, and yeah, I really never seen a company bring that up before, replacing the SIM with the XDR.
So you say let's not spend a lot of time on it, and then we'll let Rod chime in, and she here also. But here's the thing: I have seen it. Customer decided that they had the XDR, and they outsourced the SIM stuff to MSSP.
So but they're not getting rid of the SIM at that point.
I said it was splitting hairs, didn't I? They decided they did not want the operation parts of it, so they sort of split the duties. We'll manage the XDR piece, and we'll feed the signals over to the MSSP. So it sort of had like a dual responsibility, but the MSSP was in charge of consolidating all the logs into the logging solution, whether it be Microsoft centric, third-party centric, atypical, syslog self. So they sort of did get rid of the on-premise SIM and decided to reduce that physical capital liability, and they just changed it over to an OpEx, type of thing, operational costs or managed costs. So technically, they got rid of their SIM, but they told whomever, and I can't disclose the customer, but the SIM that they were using was not the primary SIM that the MSSP was using. So they technically got rid of the SIM technology, vetted several MSSPs, chose this MSSP, and the MSSP that was doing that was not using the same SIM that they were maintaining in-house. So you could. Now, if someone was running the SIM in-house, decided to get rid of it, and never introduce any type of managed SOC or whatever, and just decided to go to XDR, it's still what I was telling you. I'm not a real good cook. Actually, I'm a really good cook. So I know that's a recipe for disaster, right? Recipe for disaster.
All right, Rod, what's your take on
opinion,
this, Rod?
So I just did a real quick search on XDR versus SIEM. There's no links to that. Nobody cares. No. You still need kind of that catch-all, that technology that's going to catch the missing things, right? I consider a SIEM to be, if you ever watch those TV shows, those reality shows where those people are out in the woods somewhere digging for gold and they have those sluice boxes. That's what a SIEM is, right? It's shaking the content. It's looking for those little minute little things that all your other tools are going to miss or something, right? So there's some intelligence built in there that's going to be able to tie all those little pieces together and expose the storyline of how something transpired that you or your tools may have missed. XDR I think is really kind of an up and coming solution, but to replace a SIEM right now, no.
Well, that's the same vein of conversation. Here we are going down a rabbit hole of customers who are saying, "Oh, you can replace your firewall now. You don't need firewall anymore." I'm not a big fan of replacing edge inspection devices because to me that's all a firewall is. I don't care how many next generations you have, advanced feature sets, application aware. It's just an inspection device. If I want in, you can't keep me out. You're letting me in on the protocols and traffic patterns that I need to get in. So the good use for that is just so-called advanced insights inspections and being able to capture logs because not to offend anyone, Checkpoint, Palo Alto, Cisco, Fortinet. I can go down to Best Buy and get me a firewall. There's a packet inspector, right? Sonic Wall, IP cops if you're running Linux, pfSense. A firewall's a firewall. I just need to be able to log and see traffic coming in and out, right? And all these other people are, we got Palo Alto and we do all this stuff. Sure, you do. That's why you went and bought all these other companies because your firewall was so good. You bought all these other things to add on these things, right? So, no, don't replace your firewall. You still need some type of logging mechanism. Or I'm setting up an all-in-one device from Cisco. Almost done with it. It has the firewall feature set. When's the last time someone's using an all-in-one device that has a Cisco device that has the firewall feature set, right? And you do lose performance. The more stuff you make that device do, right? You don't have that much throughput bandwidth, right? So there is some logic behind separation of responsibilities in your architecture, and that's coming from me. Frank, my background. I came up CLI, route switch. If there's a firewall, I've broken it. Bet your ass, I've broken it before. So, but no, don't to the listeners out there and to anybody else that may share this. The official response from the Microsoft Security Insight podcast is do not replace your SIM. So that could be a career limiting move for you.
Edward's signature is on that, by the way.
Yeah. So let it be written. So let it be done.
There you go.
Rod, how was your week?
How was my week? We're just at the middle of it, so there's like a couple days left. I kind of hesitant to actually say it was a good week because it's not finished yet, but it's been a pretty good week. I got to tell you. So I was talking to Frank a little bit earlier. He's asking about this new role that I took within Microsoft here recently. Started April 1st as a security CSA. Has some real definite opportunity here. I'm kind of looking forward to it. I do have some customers already. I actually have quite a number of customers, but the role is awesome and it's tied, more in line with sales. So get all the benefits there, which is actually pretty cool. So I'm enjoying myself so far. Still kind of slow ramping up for some of the role onboard training. So we'll see how long that takes. And
yeah, I was on a call today and your role, not necessarily your name came up.
No.
Yeah, it did.
So
and the breadth of it.
Because
I got some questions about securing Kubernetes.
Yeah.
That I want to run by you, as well as securing APIs. I want to talk about landing pages. I want to talk about policy. I want to talk about blueprints. I want to talk about Azure DDoS. I want to talk about Azure WAF. I want to talk about Azure Firewall Premium. They said that the Azure CSA security guy can do all. That's what I heard today.
Oh.
I'm like, wow.
No, we were actually having that discussion today, a bunch of us. It got heated. One person, it was interesting, but it's okay.
Yeah.
It's an interesting role. It's brand new. There's a lot to kind of figure out about it. So.
Because you've been an Azure CSA and all, security CSA. I got some Azure Defender for IoT questions that I really want to run by you too.
Oh, don't even start. Don't even start.
Oh man,
Rod, you have not heard my painful story of the whole billing situation. If you've been keeping up with that, so.
There was discussion about that as well. There's certain pieces of security I won't talk about it. Anyway.
Yeah, they don't need to tear. I'm actually tearing up an old wound. It's painful right now. And then my wife asked me to bake something else. I'm like, I'm running out of arms. You want me to burn this arm off too?
And you could have come up with a good story that could have been like skateboard accident or anything.
I got mauled by a duck. How about that? I was walking
That's good.
and a duck mauled me.
Yeah.
So
We're
I do
having
have
soup
one
for
thing.
dinner, by the way.
Yes, that duck was very delicious. I'm gonna throw this out to because I know this is not in your wheelhouse, Rod. Sreedhar, pronounce your name because I'm terrible. I'm ex-military. I say everybody's last name when I can't get their first names. Go ahead and give us your name one more time.
My first name is Sreedhar and my last name is Ande, A-N-D-E.
Okay, so I got Andy right, but Sreedhar. All right, I got it.
Sreedhar.
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 Yeah.
Okay, Sreedhar. So I don't know if you're a Microsoft Defender for Endpoint type of guy. I know that Frank and I are. Rod doesn't touch the stuff. He wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole. But I got an interesting request that made me really scratch my head. And I love when customers give me something I'm like, I don't know. And then the engineering team like, we don't know either. We don't know yes or no. If I have Microsoft Defender for Endpoint deployed on a Windows 10 machine enterprise, and I spin a WSL, does it protect that Linux instance on that machine? Does it extend that capability to it? Nobody knew the answer. I've still not got an answer today. Like when you spin that Linux subsystem up, regardless of, I think it supports 2 distros, Ubuntu and something else, does it protect it? I don't know. And so I think I'm going to lab it and see if I can run processes, and then if MDE would catch the process of that Linux machine, because that's totally different from really running a virtual machine or either Windows virtual desktop, right? I want to see. So, Frank, do you know?
Do they
I'm trying to.
have,
Go
sorry,
ahead. No,
do
no,
they
you go ahead.
have do they have an agent on both of the machines like Linux and Windows?
So no. I'm running Windows 10, and you can spin up the Linux subsystem, right? So sort of
Okay.
like running that Linux in there. They want to know, does that protection extend out to that Windows Linux subsystem, which is totally, everybody's saying WSL, but if you look at the way it is it should be WLS, right? So why did they just?
If I'm going to make a wild guess here, I am going to say no. Unless you're actually dropping things into Mount C, which then will be protected by the file system under Windows. But so I don't think that Windows, I don't know where the Windows subsystem files live, and if the files are going to be taken into consideration under Windows Defender. But my guess would be no.
I know where the files reside because it creates a directory for it. And if the administrator is not hidden, you'll see it. But I don't know, like AV, malicious processes, right? Does it treat this as a virtual machine as though it would treat it if you were running virtual PC, parallels, whatever, right?
Well, Windows Defender installed on Windows 10 actually understand, the L format for looking for stuff. I just don't think it's looking for the right things, but it would look for anything in the file system. But it's another thing you can add to your list, Edward, that we'd look forward to.
I'm actually doing. When I get this podcast,
you know what? This is a good thing to use our Discord for, the Edward list. So then we can actually get the results of everything that you say that you're going to do.
Yeah.
The list would be like the Dead Sea Scrolls. They'll be there after I'm gone and you're gone. Like these things never got done.
And on our Discord, I like to point out there is a channel for Ask Rod Trent. So
yeah.
Any questions that you might have?
I'll find the answer and we'll have it ready for the next podcast just before our next guest, who's already lined up, right? So it'll give us a little bit of juxtaposition, a little bit of change of flavor. Because our next podcast is going to be more about S&C than it is about threat intel and everything. So, Mr. Andy, welcome. How you doing? How was your week, sir?
Yeah, so far it's good. Last week I went for a spring vacation, and this is my first week after vacation. It's kind of, as of now, swimming in the lots and lots of emails from all the customers. I am responding them day by day. So yeah, it's been a very busy week for me.
Yeah, the easy way to come off vacation is look up your manager, your manager's manager, and that manager. And if any of those names are not there, shift delete. If they want it, they'll come back. Simply, if it's important enough, they'll come back. I actually have rules for that. So I get up in the morning, I check out my manager, my manager's manager, my manager's manager, right? Do it, answer. My peers, whatever. Carrying Chef Franklin, bye, right? Yeah, I got a vacation coming here in about 38 days. I want to be gone for a little bit of time too. So I'm
Good.
hereby,
Yes.
I'm volunteering
will have
Rod.
to,
Yeah,
come in and co-host there.
you'll have to at least co-host 2, if not 3. I'll be gone because when I leave. It takes me days to disconnect, right? And by that time, time to come back. So when I leave.
So
Right.
still missing in action is Mr. Swift.
You know what? I saw him pop up and pop back down. I don't know if it's a combination of him changing roles, taking some time off. I know he had a big presentation, a big architecture thing about 2 weeks ago, but
We gotta get him back.
But what'd you do to piss him off? That's probably what it is.
He enjoyed himself
That's
last
probably
time
true.
he was here. It's probably my fault.
Yeah, no big deal, man. So
We were having discussions about things that, yeah, it could be the new role, to be honest.
yeah, I think it's the new role.
So
one thing I can tell you guys. So we learned this in the field today, and we'll give the podcast over. I actually got up early for me today. I've been up since about 2:45 this morning. If you're deploying Microsoft Defender for Identity, aka Azure Advanced Threat Protection, aka or previous Advanced Threat Analytics, if you're going to virtualize your domain controllers, don't put them on hosts that do these live motions and resource allocation based on demand of other servers on that host, because you get flooded with sensor health degradation all over the place. Because now it's helping you understand that you've over provisioned that host. And so these other machines that you put priority on are eating up, and now your domain controllers are suffering, right? Because now it's when the domain controller is struggling to handle its primary duties of directory enumeration, synchronization, and authentication, that the lightweight gate sensor is going to shut itself off. It's supposed to do that. Now, if you're one of these security customers, like, oh my God, it's off. What if a hacker got in within that 5 minutes that the sensor went off before it came back on? Kudos to the hackers, really good. I don't know what to tell you, right? But don't, and it's live motion in your domain controllers. I think live motion is or is that a Hyper-V thing? They're on VMware, so I don't know what they're called. But it's moving the domain controllers, right? And then the other part is, you make the sensor go crazy if you move that VM, and it gets the and I've never saw this before. The customer couldn't figure out why they were having directory issues. As they were doing it, they configured it that it was putting it on a VLAN that had communication to the core network, but you changed the IP address on it. I don't know how I flipped the VM and put it from a static IP address to a DHCP. DHCP and domain controller, that's very bad. See, that's another recipe. So I don't know what happened. I think they were just bringing some more host up. So that was going on. So things that you think you never see happen again, because we're so good at IPAM now, with locking down IP addresses, putting them on the right things. I don't know what was going on, but they're hosting their data center, and it's not entirely Azure. So it's one of those other places that are hosting. It's not Google, it's not AWS, it's the other second tier. Because I think GCP, Azure, and AWS are the top 3, and then the second tier maybe what, IBM, Rackspace, Oracle, and Oracle. And I don't know who's below that, right? So that's all I had this week, man. I haven't broke anything really interesting. Haven't talked to Rod in a while. I've been trying to catch up with some of his seminars.
Well, I know that Rod was like, you have to have this person on the podcast. So we're going to let Rod do the introduction.
Yeah, right. Because it was a great webinar podcast. I listened to it. I took notes and I went back and rewatched. I said, man, I didn't know you could do that. Who was this dude?
Oh, no, I watched it too.
And I'm like, why is he friends with Rod? Oh my God.
All right, Rod, why don't you do the introductions and what was the topic that was so interesting?
Sreedhar is just amazing resource for Azure Sentinel. He does some things, and in fact, some things with long-term storage for Azure Sentinel, which is huge hot topic right now. So maybe we can talk about that a little bit. But Sreedhar, just welcome to the podcast. I'm literally here just to kind of sit in and laugh at people. So if you have jokes, that's perfect. But anyway, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and what your role is at Microsoft, that would be awesome.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Rod. As Rod mentioned, I'm currently working as a program manager in Azure Sentinel team, and one of my favorite part of my job is working directly with customers and help them to create to assist in their POCs and then help them in advanced use cases in Azure Sentinel and bring the customers from the POC state to the fully deployed state. And I also act as a liaison between the customer and the product engineering team. And if we have any feature requests or blockers, then I closely work with the product engineering team to fix it. And if there are any gaps in the product, I will try to do automation, simple automations for a complex solutions in order to fill the gap in the product. That is what my role is currently. So far I'm enjoying my role, helping so many customers with lots of custom solutions like data connectors, and as Rod mentioned, long-term retention via Azure Data Explorer cluster and lots of stuff. Yeah. That's all from my side.
So what is this Azure Data Explorer?
So Azure Data Explorer is a solution in order to move your log analytics data to ADX. That means by default, whenever you enable Sentinel on log analytics, by default, you will get 90 days retention period. If you want to have more retention, you can still have the retention on log analytics up to 730 days, only 2 years. And if some companies have some regulatory requirements to keep the data for n number of years, like 10 years, or some companies are having like 100 years of retention. To solve that problem, we have a solution called Azure Data Explorer, where we can send the log analytics data to the Azure Data Explorer for n number of years. You can save the data there. And the advantage of using ADX is you can query your archived data just like normal data from your log analytics workspace.
So when does it actually get moved over? When it's originally written in log analytics, or at the end of life with inside log analytics, then it gets moved over? When does it actually get moved into the long-term storage, the actual records?
Yeah, as of now, there is a duplication, and as of now, we cannot apply the filters on the data export. For example, for ADX, in between we use an event hub as a destination. So, excuse me. So when you create a data export rule, it will be available in both log analytics workspace and also in the ADX cluster. There is duplication, and the team is actively working, the product group is actively working on creating the filters on the data export rules. And also, as of now, we are not supporting any custom log tables moving to ADX. So that support is also coming very soon. As of now, I don't have a timelines, but we are working on those features.
Okay, so custom log tables are important. The other question I have for you is that you can actually set the retention, I guess, specific to a table right now inside log analytics. So in the future, so when you're changing the rules in the future so there's not the duplication, since that's something that you do on a per table basis, that's going to be handled, you would say?
As of now, I don't have an answer, a solid answer. I need to look back, get back to you on this.
All right. So right now, Defender for Endpoint, right now in Defender for Endpoint, the data stays, I think, for 6 months with inside like the timeline, and then, but the threat hunting is only 14 days. Well, it's supposed to be 30 days, but it only goes 14 days for me. So getting that, other than pushing that data through the Defender 365 endpoint connector, is that also going to be pushed out? Is that a way to get the long-term storage for your Defender for Endpoint data is through the data connector for Sentinel, which then goes to Log Analytics, which then gets pushed out? Or would you do something directly from Defender for Endpoint, same scenario?
Yeah, from Defender to Endpoint, I don't know the answer, but if you send the data directly to the Azure Sentinel workspace, from Azure Sentinel workspace, we can use the ADX solution to move your data to long-term retention. For your for your first question, I need to look for the answer.
I should actually know all those dates, but
so I have a question. Two things for our customers who are learning Azure backwards, meaning that they're doing Sentinel and they're learning Azure by virtue of having to introduce Sentinel, right? ADX is Microsoft's version of a data lake. Am I right? Okay. All right. So just because one of the things I'm hearing is that as we start to get other competitors, they're saying, well, we have a cloud SIEM too. Go look at Google Chronicle and it's a data lake and it's cheap. Like, yeah, but it's just dumpy stuff in there. But now we're starting to see architectural questions around customers saying, well, we have a different data lake and we want Sentinel to be able to directly either ingest it into it or query from it. Case in point, 2 or 3 episodes back, customers decided they wanted to use Snowflake. I'm like, first of all, I don't think Snowflake's the data lake. It's more of a data warehouse, right? And then querying directly to it is going to require a whole bunch of architecture and stuff. While we can get it work maybe once or twice, the minute we turn our back, right? It's like a bad child's going to act up, right? So that's clarity. ADX, or Azure Data Explorer, is synonymous with our data lake. If I have this architectural design where I have more than one log analytics workspace, can I use the same process for those multiple workspaces, right? For whatever reason, security team only wants security correspondence. Operation team says I want up, down, and data analytics people like I need to know how responsive the app is, right, when people go to it. Can I create one process that would grab those and put it into a single Azure data lake? Or do I have to create a data lake ADX instance via Event Hub for each one? So can I take many and bring them down to one?
Okay. You can have one ADX cluster, but you need to create n number of event hubs that is pointing to the ADX cluster.
That's what I thought. And so that ADX cluster, it's a cluster of log analytics workspaces, or is it a highly optimized blob storage repository? Which one is it?
It's a cluster of multiple databases. You can create the multiple databases that hosts all the data.
Host all the data. And here's the most important question. How much? Is it expensive? Because customers go, that log analytics costs a whole lot. If I'm moving this over, what is from a business aspect of the person who has to pay the bill? Is it advantageous for them to go ahead and go use that versus log analytics?
When you compare the price of log analytics 2 years retention, Azure Data Explorer is very, very cheap.
Very cheap.
You can save lots of money.
So that's the bean counter perspective. So now let me ask the audit person who has responded to case, right? I have 3 years worth of archive logs and whatever correspondence in that. Now something happened.
Mhm.
Can I export it out of ADX and put it back into a log analytics workspace?
No need to export from your log analytics workspace itself. You can just query the data just like a normal table.
Okay.
Yeah, it is very fast. You will get the results in a second.
And the reason I ask these questions is
Yeah.
because I'm dealing with customers who are still trying to overcome the legacy mindset of, if I put it in this physical storage medium, it may not have the same speed, capability that my primary storage medium that I'm writing. Nothing really writes real time, right? But this is my primary storage, right? Without having an aggregator. So I can see it. So I can just say, hey, those logs are over there for the last 3 years. No need to re-ingest them. You can just query whatever you need to do over there.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So wouldn't you at this point in time just keep your data the shortest amount of time with inside log analytics? And
That's a
I
good
mean,
question.
you're saying there's really no performance hit here. Why don't I just keep my data in log analytics for a month and get it pushed over and start saving money? I mean,
We get 90 days for free for Azure
Yeah.
Sentinel anyway. So just
Yeah.
just take advantage of what you're given. There are 90 days and then start the
Okay.
export.
Yeah, that's the idea. Most of the customers are leaning towards what Rod just mentioned. They are just having the data for 90 days and then moving everything to ADX. There they can do hunting, where they can do perform analytical queries, everything they can do just like log analytics workspace.
So, yeah, 90 days makes sense.
So I'm waiting for the next question.
What?
Well, why would you use log analytics? Why wouldn't you just use ADX?
What, that's the question.
Okay.
Go ahead.
What's the answer? We're waiting.
There is a good answer to that. Go ahead.
I have a theory, but I want to hear the experts.
So
Well,
yeah,
let me ask the question a different way.
You want to answer that one, or
Let me ask it a different way.
Oh, let's just get the answer. I'm good to go.
Well, no, hold on. You always want to go to the end, Frank. That's when I don't go to movies with you. You always telling us the end of the movie, man. Well, I want to ask this question. So now you made me forget. Why not use it so and so? Oh, okay. Is the data fidelity the same? Meaning everything that I'm bringing into the log analytics workspace proper, being alerts, logs, whatever it may be, is it maintained? So is the feature and functionality? Can I run functions against that spot? Can I run Azure Functions? Can I run log analytics? Can I run logic app routines against that ADX? So am I losing the ability to manipulate that storage repository the same way I would if I just did anything against log analytics? Or just tell me why. Go back to the raw thing. Why would I use this versus that? There you go.
you're losing the ability to analyze the data for security events, right? So once the data is over in ADX, it's just storage. Yeah, it's absolutely awesome that we can still use KQL and query it exactly the same way. But again, it's the history of the SOC. Let's go look at the history of our operations, our investigations, and things like this. But it's not active data. We don't need that data. We need our active. And in fact, personally, from dealing with our customers, 90 days is too long. That's a gimme, right? 90 days is awesome. Current data for a SOC you should have done something with that data within 30 days.
But I don't understand what you're losing. Why can't you, if you go direct, why are you, I mean, you're not in the Sentinel application, right?
Right. So
I think what he's saying is that if I bypass LAW and send it direct to ADX, you're losing the context, because if that's the case, you can't run the analytic rules won't run against that data lake. Yeah, it won't run against it.
Why not?
Because the analytic rules are pinned to the instance of Sentinel and the LAW that's associated to that Sentinel deployment.
But if I'm allowed through KQL to go access that data, can I run KQL with inside Sentinel and access ADX?
You said KQL queries. I'm saying the built-in analytic rules.
Yeah, but if I'm building my own rules,
you can write your own rules.
right?
You can take all those 178 analytic rules and make you a super rule and just run that against it. Just join it and union everything. Just run one huge rule. Put them all together.
All right.
Stitch them together and just run it.
So can the agent, the client agent, actually just write directly to ADX and bypass going through Sentinel?
That's a good question.
No,
Go ahead.
yeah, go ahead.
Sreedhar, no, go ahead. You were going to answer that one.
Okay. So no, you cannot bypass the log analytics workspace. We cannot directly write to the ADX cluster.
And that's with the new AMA agent. Because it's not an MMA anymore. They decided to switch a letter. Well, juxtaposition a letter, right? So the AMA agent, Azure Monitoring Agent, can't write directly to the ADX cluster. It has to write to a LAW cluster. So I see where you're going with it, because the intelligence is built to run with the live pin LAW workspaces. And that makes sense, right? Yeah, closest coming to it. And I suspect that things like live stream is another reason that you can't write directly to it too, because if you're trying to run live stream versus data coming in, wouldn't it affect the way it's right into the ADX cluster? Or maybe I'm totally off on that.
No. Live stream is just a job that runs a query and sends you a notification based upon your query that's out there. So that's not a big deal. So
you probably can't use watch list against it either. Yeah, watch list.
We'll leave that one alone. So yeah, this is I think that. So what the biggest change that customers are seeing now is that after 90 days, they just ship it out to ADX and save on their retention. And then when they're hunting, they just have to go and include that inside their KQL to access that space. If I'm going out and writing a hunting query, looking at that storage, how am I writing that query? Or is it transparent to me that when I say, ago 180 days, it doesn't matter because it already knows to go back out to that storage? Or do I have to access a different workspace in my KQL statement?
I see what you're saying. You're saying if I write that query and the query says 91 days, is Sentinel intelligent enough to know that only 90 days are here? The 91st day is in that ADX cluster. Does it automatically go reference that cluster as part of the KQL? Or the better question would be, if I write a query, how do I define that it needs to go look at the ADX cluster? I don't know. How do you do that, Broad? Or
okay. Here you have, I need to answer two questions here. The first question is, as of now, the ADX or log analytics data export feature is currently in public preview. As of now, we cannot apply filters. For example, my data is reaching to 90 days on 89th day at 12 a.m. All the data has to go to my ADX cluster. As of now, we cannot do the filtering like that. So when you create a ADX cluster and when you create your data export rules that is ingesting directly to the ADX cluster, that means whatever the data you are having in log analytics workspace will have the same data in ADX cluster. That means there is a data duplication. And coming to the Frank's question, yes, in the KQL query, you can specify, okay, the data which is greater than 180 days. While writing the KQL query, you need to use a keyword called ADX, and you need to mention the table name. If you mention ADX, the table name, and the time generated greater than ago 180 days, then for auditing purpose, you will get the results from the ADX cluster.
Okay, great.
Hope
All right,
it helps.
So basically, it's like using the workspace function caller. You're using
Yeah.
ADX, so it redirects over
Yes.
and pulls in that information. Now, let's say I'm getting in information. So looking more specifically at alerts and incidents
Mhm.
that are generated by Sentinel, okay,
Mhm.
or updated by Sentinel, okay, are those not the stuff that's being ingested initially, okay, but the stuff that's being generated by Sentinel? Is that automatically going over to ADX, or is that still living with inside Sentinel?
If you have a data export rule, yes, it will moving to the ADX cluster.
Okay, so and if I update an incident, then it's still moving over at that point in time, even on an update versus a create.
Yes. So, for example, any incident or any alert you update in Azure Sentinel workspace, every incident have their associate table. When you do any action, your data record will be updated in the table. And if you enable the data export rule, if you have a data export rule on that log analytics workspace, and if you create, it will move the data in near real time to ADX cluster if you use the Event Hub as a destination.
Okay.
It's clearly a data duplication.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm just worried. I was just worried if it was just on the initial ingestion, and then the management tables, as I call them, alerts, incidents, and all that that are out there. If those were actually being updated and pushed out from there. So that was the last thing that I wanted to check. Any more questions, Edward?
You know, I'm sitting here and I'm taking notes, and if you see me bouncing around, I'm playing around with it in my lab. So everything you're saying is spot on, right? I'm doing a couple things I'm saving because otherwise I'll forget. So I'm adding to my list of things to get done to these roles.
In our Discord, we'll have people add to your list also. So
yeah.
So I do have a question. To us, right? Me being the least smartest on this call about all these things Azure, right? But I'm a customer. This sounds complicated. How hard is this to get me up and running? That I know for a fact I got a 7-year retention policy because I'm in finance, so I'm in something.
Edward is Azure. Come on. I mean, you just like put a little switches in place and then you're on your way.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, that's how you ended up with that huge bill with Defender for IoT. Thousands of dollars a month, right? Because you just click right through it. So if I'm a customer, how much of this is because I'm spoiled now? You sold me on Sentinel. I love the easy point and click data connectors. Even though the download of the syslog server is the documentation is still not right? It reads wrong. How hard is this to do? I mean, can I get this up and done in my 8 hours of work and feel as though that this is going to operate the way I think it's going to be? Can I point and click the way I do data connectors? Give me a run through of how easy it is to do.
Yeah, as of now, there is no switch on and switch off mechanism to move your log analytics data to ADX cluster. And as I mentioned in my intros, I am passionate about solving the complex problems with simple automations. I created a PowerShell script. And in that PowerShell script, what all you need to do is you need to provide your log analytics workspace ID, and you need to provide your ADX cluster URI and the database name, only 3 parameters. Once you provide these 3 parameters, my PowerShell script will go and read all the tables from your log analytics workspace except the custom log tables, and it will create a raw table mapping in the ADX cluster. All the tables, it will create the mapping, it will create the raw table and everything. And for example, if you have 20 tables, it will create all the 20 tables in ADX cluster. If you want to perform this manually, in order to create a table in ADX cluster, you need to run at least 3 queries for each table. For example, if you have 20 tables, you need to run at least 60 commands to create these tables in ADX. So I am helping one of the biggest customer. So it is one of the pain point. I understood their problem, and then I created this PowerShell script that made their life very, very easy. Not only one customer, I'm currently the ADX solution I am proposing to every customer, and my PowerShell script is making very easy to migrate their tables. And I'm still working on the PowerShell script to automate the next steps. Like as of now, I'm creating the tables automatically. The next step is in my GitHub readme.md. After creating the tables, you need to run a couple of commands to create the data export rules manually. As of now, I am currently working on to automate that process also, because I found a way, but there are a couple of limitations. I am working through that. And on March 31st, we delivered a public webinar on ADX. And as of now, the recording and the deck is available on our aka.ms security community. Just check it out.
Yeah, that's all. And I was actually in that webinar. Yeah, I watched it. It was pretty good. I actually went back and watched it. And so you and I have exchanged emails before, but this is up until then, I did not know who you were. And then and it's a pleasure to meet you on the podcast. But so I sort of been a fan, trolling you without knowing you, right? But no, this is hugely informative, because the reason that I know that Sentinel's now being adopted more is because there are no more deployment questions. It's these maintaining questions. How do I operationalize it, which is a huge SOC initiative? And then how do I put it in a management position where I meet the line of business requirements, right? Because the line of business says, you better have the logs for 7 years, man, just in case the people with the white gloves come and they're going to want to look, right? So this is good stuff. I definitely, within my lab, don't have a reason other than learning to deploy ADX cluster. I don't have that much junk coming through, right? Yeah. But, because my list gets lonely if I don't add anything to it once a week. So I'll add some to the list. We'll see.
If I had an Azure subscription, I would actually try it out, since I had to cancel my subscription.
Because you're not a good citizen. And so that's what happens when you do bad things in Azure. You get put off Azure, right? You've been kicked out of YouTube. You've been kicked out of Azure. We're going to be on MySpace here or something pretty soon, right? To be able to get things done, right? Great stuff. I think this is probably one of our most informative podcasts that we've had, because these are the questions I'm getting asked all the time. Yeah, we're going to use your product, but if you're saying everything's in the cloud, to define that for me, and there's no way I'm paying retention on an LAW workspace at this cost. Even though some customers who have big bang, like, we don't care the cost, they always say that, right? The cost is no thing. We factor this in until you realize, oh yeah, we do have the money for this, but you're telling me I can save up to 50% to 70% off by going this route, and I'm not losing any of the feature capabilities that I really don't need. That's a compelling conversation, right?
And I'll definitely put a link in the show notes for that YouTube video.
Now, the bad thing about this technology and this capability, here's a bad thing. Customers will listen all the way up to export and then realize, oh, I want to export it to a S3 bucket. No, sir. Well, you say you support data lakes. I want to put it in Hadoop. I want to put it in HD Insights. I'm like, no, it doesn't go there. It goes here. Well, I use GCP, so I forget what they call their data lake. I want to put it over there. No, it goes here, right? Because can you do it? Yes, but you lose all that context. Now it's just data, right? I don't know what happened. So I think we have to make sure that is sometimes when sellers who are non-engineers like us hear this, the only thing they hear is yes, not the architecture and the technical nuances of it. I heard Azure Sentinel can export to a data lake. Oh, absolutely we can. Yeah, whatever data lake you want to use, you name it. You can actually use Azure Sentinel and export it to Microsoft Access. Is that right? Let's go that route, right?
Isn't that part of the sales training you're going through right now, Rod?
Yeah, and in fact, you could export it to Microsoft Access. Yeah, it's possible.
Anything's possible, but is it probable, right?
Yeah.
But this is one of the things I definitely have to add to my knowledge thing rather than theory. I probably need to put my hands in it because customers will find you out when you haven't done it.
Yeah.
You get found out. I got found out today on a question. It's like, I don't know. Well, where'd you get that from? Rod Trent, you ever read his blog? So the running joke is whenever I have to respond to an RFP, I just put all the links to Rod's blog. Just put it right in here. All the RFPs go in there, right?
That's the only thing you never read it, so yeah.
And I don't know about you guys. I'm not a big social media guy, but I'm starting to of technologists that I favor and I like. I follow you guys on GitHub. That's the new following now. Do you have a Git, right? So I look at your Gits like, okay, we got some stuff in Git. Mine's is bare. Like I got like one thing in there maybe, right? So I need to add some more stuff.
We ask every single guest this question. If you had to implement Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, oh no, I'm kidding. Look at Rob.
No. Let's go ahead. I'm going to ask.
Oh, you want to go ahead? All right,
okay.
Go ahead.
I know that those are not really in your role responsibility, but if you had to deploy one of these products I'm about to name, which one? And I'm Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, Microsoft Defender for Identity, Microsoft Defender for Office 365 or MDO, Microsoft Cloud App Security, or Azure Sentinel. You get one.
You can't do Sentinel. Sentinel's not part of this.
Yeah,
game.
No, Sentinel's not it.
Sentinel's not part of this game. You can only deploy. Which one would you deploy first?
MCAS, Defender for Endpoint, Defender for Identity, or Defender for Office 365. You get to choose one. And Sentinel you can't do because you're an expert at it. You can't choose Sentinel. He's thinking about it.
No pressure.
No pressure. All your friends in the product group are listening. They're watching this. We have thousands of viewers right now. Everybody at Microsoft's in the times and they're watching. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I'll start again. Microsoft Cloud App Security, Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, Microsoft Defender for Identity, or Microsoft Defender for Office 365.
I will go with Defender for Endpoint.
Ah, there we go. All right.
As he's checking his PayPal right there. It came through, right? Yeah, PayPal. Yeah. I couldn't get mine to go out fast enough. Like, so let me recall that money.
So why would you say that?
So recently I started working on Defender Endpoint where I stream a couple of logs from the Defender Endpoint and put it into the Azure Sentinel. So that is my first-hand experience with Defender and Defender for Endpoint there. Right. Every product has a tightly integrated with Sentinel, and I love every product. But yeah, I got a chance to work on the Defender for Endpoint.
So for the next guest, I'm going to groove the question because I know why people are choosing MDE now. I've been doing an unofficial survey with the answer, and I've been watching micro expressions. I know why now. Wait till I ask the question to the guest next week. I'm going to badger the witness. Right. We'll see what's going on with that.
Do you remember what I answered? Do you remember what I answered originally? Because I'd like to change my answer.
Oh, we got it.
What do you want to change it to?
Office 365.
Really?
Yeah. That's it. All boils down to trying to manage bad end user habits. So Office 365 is going to capture that.
I'm going to say Defender for Endpoint with turning on the surface reduction rules.
I'm still going to say Cloud App Security because it boileth over with bad habits and people using Tor browsers and saying they're at work, but they're on vacation. Sir, are you logging in Cancun? No, I'm not logging in Cancun. What do you? It says never seen this logged in before. You sure you're not on vacation? All right. So MCAT still gonna be. It's noisy as all get out, right? But still my favorite, right? For bang for the buck, right? Especially if you're already entitled to it, right? And the lift is low. That is the lowest lift of all the products, point blank. Because all the other, if you deploy MDE and you Cloud App Security is already going to know. Oh, that's a 10 point. The built-in rules come. There's no KQL. There's no data connectors. It's tenant aware. And even with MDO, the default policies and stuff, you still got to go in and create a more definitive malware policy, anti-phishing policy, safe links and all that. So bang for the buck MCAS if you can live with the noise, right? The noise is what kills you.
I think we need to open up this to a poll out there on the social media and find out who the winner is.
Without Edward's pleading, just
what I mean. Let me tell you something. This is how Edward runs in his monolithic universe, right? There is no two sides to the story. It's only mine. There it is. That's it. But sir, thank you so much for coming on. Hugely informative. Learned a lot. Thanks for Rod suggesting that you come. You're always welcome anytime you want to come on and talk about something cool that you're doing. Just let us know. And we're looking to make sure that our listeners and supporters get smarter. I'm definitely smarter, right? At least 2 things I wrote down. I didn't realize, like, oh, that answers the question that I had. So I'm gonna take that back tomorrow. Make it seem like I figured it out.
Yeah.
And we'll go with that. Rod, did you get so I sent Rod a bunch of stuff for his lab that he had to have.
Oh my goodness.
Hasn't set anything up. I spent hard money out of my thing. I said my nice new Fortinet, fully licensed, has a cloud SIM built in so he can do it. I sent him a Cisco switch so he had enough ports. I sent him cables. He's got his desk balancing on it. You see that?
It's level. The desk is level now. Thank you. No, I've been too busy. I will do it.
Yeah, I would get around to it too. Well, gentlemen, in the interest of time, let everyone get back to the evening. I actually I got another podcast to come up here at 7:30. Believe it or not, I'm a guest on another one, so I need to go do that. Any closing remarks, Miss Ande?
No, for example, there are a couple of other architectural options also in long retention. Yeah, maybe once I will find some time and get back with a presentation so that I can give all the options that are available on long-term retention.
You're always welcome here. Just give us notice. We'll make time for you.
Okay, thank you.
With that being said, to our listeners out on Twitch, because I'm on Twitch too, thanks for coming. Hope you learned something today. Always get fresh French fries from Chick-fil-A. Fresh French fries. It'll make your life better. I promise you.
All right, until next week.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Bye.